Blessings, my people. Today, in Genesis chapter 2, 15 lessons learned in the book of Genesis chapter 2. Lesson number 1, the origin of the name week. During creation, God rested after 7 days. Rest is observed to regenerate strength. When God rested after 7 days, man decided to mark 7 days and call it week. That was in Genesis chapter 2, verses 2. Lesson number 2, rest is required after work, and rest is meant for sanctification and blessing the works of the Lord. That one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 3. What does that mean? It means that it is not only on Sunday that you're supposed to bless the Lord. It is every day, because according to creation, the only time that God rested was after 7 days. For us, because we are created in the image of God, we are supposed to be seeking God every day after work. That one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 3. Lesson number 3. Blessing and the curse is entirely in your hands. That one is witness when the mist went up and watered the whole ground, and the whole ground became fertile. It categorically states that God did make it to do, and man was not formed by then. So what happened? It is the light that God spoke in Genesis chapter 1, verses 3 that was in action. So that one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 5 and 6, when the mist went up and watered the whole ground, and the whole ground became fertile. So number 4, you're living because of God's grace. Yeah, you're not living because you're healthy. You're not living because you have money. You're not living because you're lucky. You're living because God breathes the breath of life and you became a living being. That one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 7. So number 5, extreme happiness is achieved when you live in God's purpose and you follow His commands and His words. That one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 to 9. The story of Adam in the garden. Adam had the food. He didn't have to labor for anything. He had everything that he wanted. God gave him everything that he wanted under one command, that he obeys him. Lesson number 6, if it grows and it pleasing to the eye, it is good for food. That one is found in Genesis chapter 2, verses 9. Lesson number 7, purpose has to come from within. That one is found in Genesis chapter 2, verses 8. The creation of man. When God created man, He created Eden and put him there, and put everything there, and gave him responsibility and commands, and He made boundaries for man to respect, and gave him freedom. So He gave him purpose there. So the purpose started within the Garden of Eden. So your purpose has to start from within. That was in Genesis chapter 2, verses 8. Lesson number 8. Sinning also happens from within. When God commanded man not to eat from the tree, the true tree of good and evil, man decided not to heed to God's word and decided to eat anyway. Yes, so sinning happens from within. It happened within the garden. So that one is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16. Lesson number 9. When God says it's good, it is. That one is witnessed when God created the river that went to the other land. It was called Havia, and it produced gold, and God said that gold is good. And that one is found in Genesis chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. The names of the stones were mentioned there, and the stones were bdellium and onyx. And that one has helped me understand why there is a phenomenon of US rappers wearing bling diamonds on their neck, saying they are protected from any kind of bad spirits. But they have a misconception, because the stones that they are using to wear those bling is a wrong stone. The actual stone that repels bad spirits is mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, verses 11 and 12, and is bdellium and onyx. When you go and search it up, they have good spiritual benefits. That was in Genesis chapter 2, verse 11. Lesson number 10. Early death is a personal choice. That one is found in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, when God commanded man not to eat from the tree of good and evil. He categorically said, if you eat, you shall die. And you know, the common denominator of death is sin. So death goes with sin. So when you eat from the tree of good and evil, it means it's a personal choice. You either obey or not. Early death is a personal choice. That was in Genesis chapter 2 verse 16. That lesson number 11. Tree of knowledge of good and evil signifies God's word and command. Yeah, when you eat from that tree, God said, you shall surely die. Another verse in the Bible talks about sin. It says, the wages of sin is death. So the common denominator there is death. So it means the tree of knowledge of good and evil is God's word. Because when you go against God's word, you encounter death. Lesson number 12. Man can't survive without a woman, and a woman loses purpose without a man. That one is in Genesis chapter 2 verses 18. God said, it is not good for man to be alone. So when God says it's not good, it is not good. So man can't survive without a woman. So he said, I will create for him a helper. He called a woman a helper, meaning that a woman is a helper. That is her purpose. So when God calls you a helper, you have to help something. So that notion of Miss Independence and I'm a bachelor, that one is a lie, because Genesis chapter 2 verses 18 debunks that idea. Lesson number 13. Man and woman are equal but in different strengths. In Genesis chapter 2 verses 23. When God said it's not good for man to be alone, he decided to create for him a help me. So God created for man a help me, and then he brought it to man to name the help me. Initially, God had given man the responsibility to name everything, and everything that he named, it became what he named. So man decided to call the help me a woman. When you see the prefix war on Biblical Encyclopedia, war means equally proper. So man decided to call the help me equally proper to man, meaning that man and woman are equal but in different strength, because God already called the woman a help me. So the woman has strength of a helper, and the man has strength being in charge of the purpose. So that one is found in Genesis chapter 2 verse 23, and it says, when man saw woman, he said, this is the bones of my bones, the flesh of my flesh. So that one backs it up. Genesis chapter 2 verse 23. Man and woman are equal but in different strengths. So number 14. The things a woman is supposed to look for in finding a man. 1. The man has to be anchored. Number 2, he has to have a purpose. Number 3, he has to be mature. Only those 3 things. And those ones are in Genesis chapter 2 verses 15. So when God calls you, it means you have to be anchored. So God called Adam in the Garden of Eden to be responsible, and he gave him a purpose. So God calls you, you're anchored. Then he gave man a purpose to be in the Garden of Eden. That's the purpose. And then in Genesis chapter 2 verse 24, it categorically says, for this reason a man shall leave the father and the mother to be joined to his wife. What does that mean? It means leaving the mother and the father means you stop being a child, you mature. Stop being a child is, it is your time to be responsible and accountable. So that's the criteria of a woman to secure a godly man. Lesson number 15. Things a man is supposed to look for in securing a godly woman. Number 1, she has to be anchored. Number 2, she has to have good relationship with her father and high respect to her father. Number 3, she has to be a suitable helper. Those ones are in Genesis chapter 2 verses 18, Genesis chapter 2 verses 22. God took a woman out of a man. So when God takes you out of a man, it means you're anchored. When he takes you out of a man, it means you are supposed to have high respect of a man, because you have to respect where you're from. That is taking you from a man. And it's the same God who brings a woman to a man for a man to name her. Remember, the woman is brought to a man. She's still a woman. And when she's joined with a man, she becomes a wife. A woman is supposed to look for a man, meaning that a woman is supposed to see what to help, willingly channel all her energy, resources, and her presence with the man she wants to help. And so the notion of men chasing women is demystified in Genesis chapter 2, verses 18, because it is God to take a woman to a man, and that one also defines submission, a woman submitting to a man, God taking a woman to a man. Number 3, she has to be suitable helper. What does a suitable helper mean? A suitable helper means a woman who is willingly, the word is willingly, a woman who is willingly ready to support a man with the energy, with the resources, and a presence. And when they come together, God says they become one as flesh. And when God says they become one as flesh, it means nothing can separate them. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 25, God says, Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. What does that mean? It means that they did the right thing. Because when you do the wrong thing is when you feel guilty. Shame comes when you feel guilty. So let's meet in Genesis chapter 3. Bye.